Hello everyone, it is me, GamePeng21, and today, oh boy, you saw the title, you know that this is Reforge Gaming, and we've talked about him enough on this channel for you to know who he is, but in case you're new here and you have no idea who I'm talking about, Reforge Gaming is a, quote, insider person who apparently knows a lot more about the gaming industry, despite not really actually, and being very biased in his views, as I've covered a lot on this channel. Now, he doesn't have always some of the worst takes, but he gets close a few times, and this clip's been passed around from a lot of people, and quite frankly, I kind of have a few things to say about it. Now, there's another couple of clips that is going to be out there, but the one that I'm going to be focused on in my next video is going to be like a 10-minute long clip, so that's going to be whatever, and it has something to do with him being a quote, testing games, but I wanted to get through that video a few more times to get my thoughts through in an important way. So yeah, don't worry, that's going to be next Tuesday, and it's going to be a super long video. Number two is, of course, I got to do the shilling thing before we get started with this. 1K by the end of the year. Links down to my music and links down to the Twitch in the description below, twitch.tv/GamePeng21, etc. Not really much else to talk about other than the fact that he thinks that Gear 6 should be multi-platform, and we're going to determine whether or not that is a thing that can happen. Spoiler alert, I don't think that's going to happen, and quite honestly, this opinion that he has, he's going to be quote-unquote stating it as a fact, or at least it feels that he's going to be stating it as a fact in the sense of the wording and stuff that he uses. So, yeah, let's tear him apart piece by piece.
Another big question I have for Gear 6, will this be a multi-plat release? If they're just 1 year into development, I don't really see a reason to lock this to Xbox and PC. By the time it releases multi-plat Xbox Studio games, that'll be pretty normal, I would think. But that makes for a brand new question. If the Coalition made the decision to make Gear 6 this visually intense, cinematic 30 FPS game, you know, all those PR things we're being told about Hellblade, would that fly with consumers on a PS5 or a PS5 Pro in 2027 or 2028? And would that be an opportunity for a game to maybe be 60 FPS on the PlayStation platform, but not on the Xbox?
Oh boy, okay, so one thing that you'll probably notice throughout this whole video here is that he is kind of playing with this as a hypothetical, quote-unquote, scenario from him, but he's playing it up as if it's like an actual fact, and he's trying to do the whole news anchor thing of presenting his opinion, but presenting it in like a factual type way, where it's kind of there, and you can kind of agree with it if you're not thinking about it too hard, because the logistics of that just make no fucking sense. It's been well established and well documented and well talked about in the gaming industry that Sony doesn't like Microsoft in a lot of ways, and like that's understandable. They're rivals in the gaming industry. They have a lot of different strengths and weaknesses, and Sony has been trying to levy and push out Microsoft for years at this point, to some success, as some people would argue probably in the comments. Now, obviously, this means that if Xbox has been deciding to adjust their things and adjust their way of thinking in terms of exclusives and in terms of video games and in terms of ways to make money, obviously that means that they're looking to go, quote, third party, because that means that they are just going to be able to make video games and not, you know, still be able to compete on a wider stage with Sony for whatever reason. Look, whether or not they decide to do that is immaterial. I don't think that they would want to do that with one of their flagship franchises because they said, hey, we're just going to release only these 4 games, and that's it. And a lot of the Sony guys out there basically took this and ran with it saying, oh, well, when is this coming to our platform? When is this coming to our platform? And they're doing the same thing that they actually blamed the PC guys for, if you think about it, where the PC guys basically were asking once Sony started to port their stuff over, or were talking about Sony ports when that was a thing, they're like, oh, well, you're just now port begging because you want our games. Yet, when they do it in the sense of, oh, well, we want Xbox exclusives, that's a different thing entirely because they think that they have that whole mention to that. Again, I find it interesting how they project and talk about how other people are, quote, port begging when they themselves have also been port begging for games that they say that they won't buy or that won't be supported on the actual platform, according to them. So interesting dichotomy.
Like, maybe just the PS5 Pro, okay? Jez Corden recently claimed on a podcast that Kate Rayner, the vice president and technical director at the Coalition, she now runs her own division, and what she's doing is she's helping other Xbox studios get the Coalition level with the Unreal Engine. So they're basically like, listen, we know all this great stuff about the Unreal Engine. We're going to now develop essentially a team to help other studios do the same thing. Now, this could be part of the multi-plat strategy to ensure that Unreal games get better performance. She could be going over to maybe Ninja Theory. I don't know. Let's get that performance mode for Hellblade 2 on the Series X. Now, even though John Linneman is confident that they can get 60 FPS for the console in Gears of War 6, another question hanging in the air is the 30 FPS and the 60 FPS situation a parity issue for first-party Xbox studios? Every Xbox first-party game has launched either 30 FPS on both or 60 FPS on both, and when the 60 FPS update came to Redfall, it came to both consoles. So let's say that...
Oh boy. Okay, first of all, let me be clear here and say I don't like the way that he kind of like live edits his videos, if that makes sense. Because he did that thing where he kind of flashed the like Gears thing up there, and he had this whole thing, and it looked like it was a continuing thing, and then he had his head in the corner, and then he basically made it into this. To me, that screams of like jingling keys in front of someone. I never really liked that, where, you know, you cut around specific videos, and you cut around this, and you cut around that. Some people might look at me and be like, oh, well, you cut around your gameplay video all the time, and you, like, transfer to different clips. But yes, but that's different because I ran out of footage for that particular game, and you don't need to see me, like, fucking around in the lobby for 5 to 30 seconds, because that gets boring to watch. Like, I've had times where that happens, and that's usually, like, not good. And again, my video style is different, so I can't really blame him for doing that, because he is very boring to listen to. On a topic of his actual points here, of what he's talking about, the main thing that he's basically saying is, oh, well, they now may create an internal team, which could, in theory, become the reason why they're going into third-party stuff, to which I look at this and I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Because at the same time, they could just be looking to up their FPSs to bring the marketing stuff to fruition that they kind of talked about at the beginning. Because that, to me, just seems like the most and goodest amount of sense that it could make. Why? For the sheer fact that they said, hey, 60 FPS is going to be the standard, and yet they have been unable to deliver consistently 60 FPS. So, rather than say, you know, have each of the teams learn internally, it just seems like a more beneficial thing for them to just make the games, like, or make a team specifically dedicated to teaching and helping improve that sort of thing. It doesn't make any sense why it would be anything other than bringing up their own standards to the standards that they kind of set themselves for, or the standards that people expect them to grow and change. To which I originally thought about this and thought, like, oh, well, does that mean that, you know, they were going to be working with Sony? Which I don't know why Sony would do that, in the sense of having their own, in the sense of not have, of shilling out money to use their team to help with that. Which to me just, again, I don't know. I don't know why I thought that. I completely misinterpreted the words, and that's my own fault because he doesn't seem to explain himself in a good enough way. And I misinterpreted that, so that's kind of a failure to there. But I understand what he's talking about now, and it still makes no fucking sense. So, you know, bad explanation equals bad explanation.
John Linneman is correct, and Gear 6 gets a great performance mode, but what if it only works on the Series X? Would Xbox allow that? What if it only works on the Series X and the PS5 and the PS5 Pro? What about the PS5 Pro? It's literally designed to give you more frames in really pretty modes like 4K modes and ray tracing. Would they let an Xbox first-party game tap into the greater power of the PS5 Pro? Will this push into...
Considering the fact that they didn't actually give Microsoft the like dev kits for Minecraft for a while, or at least for the PS5 version of Minecraft, that they wanted to kind of port it over, I don't know if they'd be willing to even work with Microsoft in that context. If they're not willing to work with Minecraft, which has literally made them probably boatloads of money at this point.
If they're pushing into more of a publishing role, I'm curious how Xbox handles these types of decisions going forward. They let Sea of Thieves get exclusive cosmetics for the PS5. They let Hi-Fi Rush get exclusive features with the DualSense controller. I would lean toward them allowing a developer like the Coalition to tap into as much power and as many features as possible. And that feature parity and performance parity will soon be a forgotten memory. Now, my last question about Gear 6 is this. Will it be live service?
Okay, so before we move on to his last question here, I do want to point out that, number one, the Sea of Thieves thing, I talked about this a little bit in another video, I believe. That's stupid, all right? And I am 100% convinced that the reason for that exclusive content is the same reason why Call of Duty, for years at a time, or for the last few years, has had PlayStation exclusive cosmetics, in terms of, like, DLC stuff. Because if you remember the history of Call of Duty, and I should know, I was a Call of Duty fan for fucking years, but the basic history is that the original way that Call of Duty was made was Call of Duty came out on every platform, but they had, Xbox had the exclusive rights to be first in terms of the DLC whenever that was being paid DLC, because you would have one Call of Duty and then you have 4 map packs with, like, whatever was in that for content, 1 season pass for the whole year, and that would cover you basically for that. And if you were on Xbox, you would get it early, but you still wouldn't get it like exclusive content for that. However, once they lost that, Sony stepped in, and then they made sure that they got that exclusive content, where they themselves had access to sometimes fully exclusive modes, not just for, like, a small amount of time, but for, like, the entirety worth of the initial lifespan of the year that the Call of Duty would be out. And it's kind of devolved since then into them getting exclusive cosmetics and them getting exclusive rewards for people trying to be invited into that. So that to me seems like a Sony thing where they had to sign a contract saying, hey, you need to give us something exclusive so we can do it, because, you know, they want people to come over to their platform because that's kind of the way that they operate in terms of that. However, for the Hi-Fi Rush situation, didn't Hi-Fi Rush also have DualSense controller support when it was on PC initially? Wasn't that, like, a thing that they just happened to have? Like, I don't know, it just... Or at the very least, they might have gotten an update for it recently, which is not, like, a necessarily new thing. I don't know, I distinctly remember them saying, hey, DualSense controller support is now officially on the PC version, and they were thinking that it was going to come to PlayStation soon enough, or that initially was there in terms of support in terms of the controller, but again, I don't remember the specific timelines because it's been a bit. But yeah, just 2 interesting situations that have vastly different results, and overall, just is, again, one of the reasons why people call him a Sony pony.
As in, will they leverage PvP, online, multiplayer, or any other ongoing content model? With the success of Helldivers 2, I can't help but look at Gears and think, all right, it's your turn now. They're the ones that gave us Horde Mode, which has influenced a bunch of other games. Just the term Horde Mode, right? That's from Gears of War. It's time for the granddaddy of the Horde Mode to bring something amazing to the market. Helldivers 2 proves that shooting baddies with your buddies is winning. It's a very winning combination. It's fun. It's a very addictive model. So, what are my predictions? Well,
Okay, so leading into live service for the Gears franchise might be a way that they'd go about it. I don't want to put it past it, but I don't want to confirm it and say, like, oh yeah, that just makes the most amount of sense, because, Helldivers 2, which, let me be clear here, right? Helldivers 2's success is not an indication that Gears should do the same thing. And I want to make that very clear as to why, as because they are 2 very distinct third-person action-type shooter games. Gears being more grounded-ish and brutal-ish, whereas Helldivers seems to be more, I guess, grounded-ish, but brutal-ish in a very different way. Very slightly, but there's enough differences there that it just... Why exactly would the response to Helldivers 2 be Gears and maybe not like Halo or something like that, or like them not making their own game? Like, why does that make any sense in terms of your brain? That the success of one game means that the others need to adjust specifically to, compensate for that. That's not how this shit necessarily works. I mean, kind of, sort of, ish. It depends on the game, depends on the franchise, depends on everything else to it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to say that they wouldn't do that 100%. But here's the thing, right? Coming from you, I don't think that's how that they should go about doing it. I think that how they should go about doing it is play to the strengths of the game itself. If they want to leverage multiplayer or leverage some of those strengths from the single player into the multiplayer, that just makes good ideas better. But overall, the way that you present it is like, this is how they're going to do it, this is how they are doing it, and that's like, again, I don't know why you voice your thing this way, because it feels like you're stating a fact, and that like, oh, these decisions have already been made, therefore talking about them is important. And I don't know, I just get that sense from you, and I don't like that. That's like the arrogance of it kind of comes off as that, so very, very odd.
Going to predict 30 FPS, but John Linneman has me doubting that, all right? And I truly hope that he's right, okay? I hope 3 or 4 more years in UE5 gives the Coalition what they need. Now, that would turn the tide for some, but it would not turn the tide for how worthless my Xbox Series X feels, okay? Even friend of the show, Doc Dark, has completely switched to PC gaming, admitting, along with me, that our Xbox Series X just really has no use. By the time Gears of War 6 strolls into the market, I imagine it'll be multi-plat, and if it can have 60 FPS, okay, if they can nail that, I'll just play it on my PS5 Pro. So that's my other prediction. I actually believe Gears 6 will be a...
Again, I love how he says, like, oh yeah, it's going to be on the PS5 Pro, and I would like to be that way. Like, why did you just automatically say, like, oh, well, it might come to the PlayStation, and then just assume that it would? Like, that's the part that I'm, like, confused and hurt, and, like, well, not really hurt, but, like, just, like, I'm confused, and what I'm finding so dumb about this. You're just basically stating, oh yeah, they're going to be doing it because obviously that's the way that Microsoft seems to be going, when you have no fucking clue when Microsoft's going to be going. Like, they literally said in an interview, hey, we're just bringing these 4 games, we might bring other ones, but don't hold your breath on doing that, because just because we're bringing these 4 games to PC, to the PlayStation platform and stuff, doesn't necessarily mean that way. It's kind of the same thing that they did with, I believe, Minecraft, where they kind of made a version for every console and then slowly turned on crossplay, which, let me be clear here, Sony themselves was the last one to get crossplay because, quote, they were the best place to play. And they were one of the first games to get crossplay across all of the platforms, that being Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and the PC, all of those to get the platform together. Even mobile got like cross-platform with that, and that's really fucking weird. But let's finish out this video.
Multi-plat release. Numerous leaks and insiders are claiming that in-process projects have been switched to non-Xbox exclusives. It might be why, as I've theorized before, why we kept...
We've also had reports of the other way around, where multi-platform projects were made then exclusive via, say, a deal for something like that. You don't believe me? Well, take a look at No Man's Sky. They took a while to bring the games to other platforms, including Xbox, because Sony paid them a lot of money.
Hearing about the Gears collection, and it just never came. It's maybe being ported so that it can be a multi-plat release as well. That'd be a great runway for getting people excited about Gears 6. Lastly, do I think Gears 6 will be live service or not? I'm honestly torn, because I think it could, but arena-style PvP just seems to sort of struggle lately. Battle Royales, extraction shooters, these larger-scale games, they seem to have changed the PvP consumer's palate. At least that's what it seems like to me. Sure, games like Valorant have done well, but that's aimed at a very specific type of player. I honestly wonder if Gears could do more with the PvE side of things, similar to how Helldivers 2 has been so successful. Gears definitely has a secret sauce and a really good feel, and I think they could leverage that beyond just PvP or a battle pass. So those are all the questions and thoughts that I have. That's what I think. What do you think?
I think that your opinion is ass, and that you really should think about the way that you speak and the way that you present these sort of information and opinions as, well, fact. The basic thing here that I still find very annoying that you continuously do throughout the entirety of most of the clips is whenever you get this thought in your head that something might go PlayStation direction, you get the sense that that's going to happen because the PlayStation is great. I also find it funny how, again, you said instead of playing it on, say, your PC, you say, oh no, I'll play it on my PlayStation Pro. Like, again, that is going to happen because that's the way you think. It's things like that. It's the way that you present the, quote, opinion and information that you tend to have due to your, quote, insider information from you that just rubs everyone the wrong way. You come off as an arrogant dick in this video, as well as most of the other times when people even give you a tiny amount of criticism. And yet, you yourself say, oh, well, these are just my opinions, therefore you shouldn't be getting mad about that. To which I then have to respond and basically say, that's not how opinions work, bitch! And like most of the other commentary channels that come at you about this from these types of angles, the reason why we come at you is because you are not above criticism. That's one of the things that I have a through line through this channel. No one in this video, no one on this channel, no one in the world should be above various amounts of critique. Because critique and critical analysis is important when you talk about history and when you talk about fucking shit in general. It's not how things get important. I might seem like a Debbie Downer, and my general philosophy on worlds is that everyone has the capacity for an evil or a not so good takedown of a person. Like, everyone has those evil actions, and that might seem like a very pessimistic and negative way to view the world. But whenever you hear that sentence, you always critique it, which is important to my philosophy. That you critique that sentence, that if a person has the capacity for evil, that means that a person has the capacity to do good as well. Because that's how shit gets done, okay? That's how things work. Anyway, philosophical debates and shit aside, what did we learn in this video? Well, apparently that Gear 6 has a secret sauce that Microsoft should give up to their competition, because that seems to be the way that they're going, at least according to a Sony fanboy who disguises his opinions and stuff with facts and continuously reads out and talks about, well, articles and things like that, where some of them just happens to be opinion pieces that he agrees with. So, totally not biased opinion there, apparently, even though it's completely and utterly biased, and that last sentence was meant to be sarcasm for any one of you that's slow in the back. Anyway, I think that'll about do it for this video. My name is GamePenguin21. If you like what it is that I do and want to support me in other ways, links down to the Bandcamp, links down to the Twitch, links down to even the Patreon and the Gumroad if you really want to support me monetarily or whatever in that context. I'm looking to hit 1K subscribers by the end of the year, like I said at the top of the video, so hitting that subscribe and that like button pushes me through the algorithm, and I love you all for it. In any case, my name is GamePenguin21. Thank you so much for watching again. Reforge, I have nothing else to say, and a peace off.